Hello, welcome to episode 216 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you joining me today. I am privileged to welcome Stargate SG-1's original production designer, Richard Hudolin, to my show. He was responsible for the first 5 seasons of the show as production designer. He's done, you can look him up on IMDb, his body of work is extensive. Battlestar Galactica and Caprica, Doctor Who. He is responsible for so much of what it is that many of us watch in terms of sci-fi and consider, bedrock science fiction. And I can't wait to have him share some of these amazing stories with you and have you get to know him a little bit. Before we get into the thick of it, if you enjoy Stargate, and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, click that like button. It makes a difference with our profile, and will continue to help the show grow its audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this episode will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and the GateWorld.net YouTube channels. This is a pre-recorded episode, so the moderators in the YouTube chat will not be collecting questions for Richard. They'll be there to enjoy the show with all of you. So I appreciate you tuning in. I'm really excited about this episode. We cover a lot of ground here, a lot of fundamental Stargate SG-1 stuff in terms of the building of some of the most important set pieces of the mythology. Here's Richard Hudolin. Richard Hudolin, production designer, Stargate SG-1, seasons 1 through 5. This is such a treat for me, sir, to have you on. You are responsible in so many ways for the aesthetic that was Stargate SG-1. From the movie into this whole new world, you and your team of wizards. I can't begin to imagine the workload from the day to day that you guys managed to pull off, and of course Battlestar Galactica and Caprica. Sir, it is an honor to have you. This is I'm you can't see, but I'm pinching myself here. So it's go ahead.
No, it's fine. There's lots of great shows. Doctor Who was in there, and all kinds of great shows that I've worked on. Not all of them sci-fi, but
Right.
Little Women. I was an art director on Little Women way back when Christian Bale was a little boy, for God's sakes. He was the guy, the little kid.
Right. No,
All those great people
I was no means exhaustive in my at the beginning of that there. So much of the stuff that you've worked on, people are still watching to this day. What does Stargate mean to you?
It was a pretty important part of my career, and I had just finished. I can't remember what I had just finished, but I got this call from Brad. I think it was Brad Wright, and and they were over at the Bridge Studios, and I went and I met them. I think Jonathan was there as well, and they were talking about this Stargate, and I had seen the movie, which I thought was fantastic. Right, James Spader and that whole thing was all gorgeous movie, great concept. And they said, we have this concept for a television series that'll take you here, there, everywhere. And Richard Dean Anderson was the star. And I said, well, Christ, MacGyver, that's a great show as well. And we're going to get 44 episodes. What? 44 episodes? Are you kidding me? And I had a great team already in progress. I had, people that I worked with. I worked a lot, and a lot of the people were learning computers. I was busy getting the next gig. You know what I mean? Because they're tapping away, and I'm going to LA, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going to do that thing. So I was kind of the guy who kept the thing going. This big, actually was a small machine. It wasn't a big machine,
But
but I
you were
had
feeding
Bridget.
the machine.
I was feeding the machine, and I had brought Bridget along, and Doug McLean and Ken Rabehl, and Tom Wells, who was our construction coordinator, and the Davidsons, who were props people, or sorry, decorating people, and a whole tight art department. It was, and after you've worked with people a little bit, you either work again together or you don't, or you get a team together. You get a cohesive unity where the short form is there. In parts of Stargate, I could be on a location on a phone. And again, this was pre-computer and pre-sticky notes and pre-cell phones. It was like you were a roll of quarters and describing something or whatever. Later on, and Battlestar days, Christ, I'd be in a survey van 6 hours a day, and you could do a sketch on a sticky note, photograph it, send it to the art department. By the time you got back to the art department, there would be a drawing on a computer. It was because it was that fast, right? Because A, they could understand what you were saying and talking about. B, the physical information was transferred electronically so quickly.
But not in 1997.
Not in 1997. No, back in the day, we had smaller art departments. Your choices were, will that be an HB, a 2H, an F pencil, or a primer print, or and or do you want to do it in ink and really screw yourself up?
Ink is permanent.
It was, but it was a smaller group back in those days, and we did everything. I've had art departments as 3 people, 4 people, and that was it. And this is a television series, like Hat Squad or whatever. 3 people, 3 people. Done. That's what you do. You're going to be the assistant. You're going to be the junior. You're going to be this, and I'll do that, and whatever. I'll do what I have to do. I'll go get the coffee. I don't care. We're all part of the same deal here. And if I have to stay overnight, well, I'll stay overnight. That's not a problem. Because when the work is there and it has to shoot, it has to shoot. And when it's not there, I don't care if you got to go to the go. You want to take an afternoon off? I'm cool with that. You don't have to tell me where you're going every 5 minutes. I don't need to know. All I need to know is when the camera turns on, they got something really good to shoot. And if it's your responsibility and it's not there, we're going to be talking.
Absolutely. Do you have your phone near you?
Pardon me?
Do you have your cell phone handy?
Yeah.
I'm going to send you something. I'm not sure how long it's been since you've seen this. You may have a copy of it on your desk, but I came across this and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sharing this with Richard.
Oh my God. I have this photo somewhere. I really do. I'm not sure where it is at the moment, but yeah, I remember that.
So I have first names on here. On the left, it's Jenny. Jenny who?
Oh, Sakamoto.
Okay.
Ginny, Doug McLean, Ivana, Bridget, me, Michael Wong, and Ken Rabehl.
Wow. That was your team.
That was the Stargate gang. And all of these people I'd worked with quite extensively over what I'll call the core crew that were with me for the longest period of time would be Doug McLean, Ivana, Bridget, and Ken. We were the hard rock core. Ginny then went on to do, evolve into, she was a junior at that time. So, evolve into whatever position she's evolved into. And Michael, he's a great illustrator. And then Ken and I got along really well, and we just went from movie to movie to movie. And when we weren't working on a movie, here's the kind of guy Ken Rabehl was. He was so talented. I would get a gig. I remember getting a gig one time, and I called him and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm scraping linoleum off of a floor, doing a wrap on some show because there's nothing in town for him to work on." Or he didn't, or everybody, all the good illustrator jobs were taken, and he couldn't get a gig. And I said, "I got one for you," and that was Stargate. I said, "Whoever your coordinator is, go and tell him that I called." And the coordinator said, just go right now with Richard. And and he was on Little Women and a whole lot of shows, man. He was a fantastic guy. Fantastic guy. They all are. That's one group of talent right there.
Ken in particular, we lost him a few years ago.
Yeah, I was with him just before
to ALS.
He went, and it was a choice that he made. I remember him coming into my office when he told me and Richard at the same time that he had ALS, and we kept him as long as possible. We would have kept him as long as he wanted to stay. I could care less if he was even drawing. I just make sure he had an income. Right?
Was this Battlestar at this point?
This was on Arrow at this point.
This was on Arrow. Okay.
Yeah, and so we told him, as long as you want to stay. And he just reached a point where he physically couldn't do it anymore. And I remember, I asked Katie, our office assistant, to go and get me a 6-pack of Coronas, because I had called Ken. I said, "I'm going to come and visit you." And I sent her out and I said, "Get me some Coronas and give me some limes." And I went to visit Ken. And a week later, he had people come over and take him away and do the assisted dying thing. He knew it was coming, and he said, "Richard, I just can't live like this anymore." And he was very proud and a very strong man. And that's the decision he made. And he said to me, he said, "Richard, a lot of people have been coming by to say hello and goodbye and all that. And you're the only guy that ever asked me what kind of beer I like." That's the kind of sense of humor he had, right? And so we had a few of those wobbly pops and
wobbly pops. That's great.
And then that was the last time I saw him. But a great guy. And I have things around my studio here and illustrations that he's done for, I don't know, my birthday card or whatever, stuff like that. It's and he would just do this, and Christ, I think Bridget told you this, he would want to finish a drawing to the nth degree. And I remember a couple of times, because I would have to go and do the presentations, and if the executives weren't coming to Vancouver, I would fly to LA, right? And I'd get my package together and make sure it was on a big enough size that I could carry it on. I'm not putting this in cargo. And I remember a couple of times I'd go up to his desk because I got the limo pulling up in 5 minutes to take me to the airport, and that flight's going to leave. And I'm literally grabbing the thing up. I said, "You're done, man. You're just fucking finished right now."
Pry it out of his hands.
And I literally was prying it off of his board to take it with me and said, "Look, I'll sell the rest, okay? I know what it's supposed to be."
Oh, that's wild.
So it was like that. And he was a mountain climber. He did all kinds of stuff. Yeah, he was very interesting and a great guy. And I knew him, oh God, for a long, long time.
I am privileged to have so many examples of his work to be able to show. You're surrounded by some large gray thing. I don't know what this possibly, some kind of Stargate or something. Is this yours, or are these the salvage pieces from the feature?
No, I brought it from home.
No, I mean, Is it Stargate Productions original, or is
What
this the
what
one
what
salvaged from
happened?
the movie?
What happened once I got the gig? Uh, we were in, what was called the baby stage because the effects stage we didn't have access to at that point, and the studio that we eventually wound up in wasn't even built yet.
Yeah, stages 5, where SG-1 was, and 6, which was like
Yeah,
a secondary. Those were still parking lot space. I wanted to
that was
establish
part.
this first and foremost.
I remember looking at drawings of those stages as they were in progress, and they would come to me and say, "Is there anything you want in these stages?" And I would say, "Yeah, put in a couple of water taps and a couple of sinks," because all architects always forget when they build a studio that a couple of water taps and a couple of sinks in a studio are a tremendous help to people like the painters and whoever has to do anything with water has.
Yeah.
And anyway, we had those,
Okay.
but they were being built. So we were in the baby stage, and I got the gig, and we were setting up. And I was talking to the execs, and I flew down to Los Angeles, and there was in the middle of nowhere, up, oh God, north of LA. I went to MGM, and they assigned me a wonderful person. God, I can't remember her name. A great woman. Her job was, they checked me out, obviously, and she told me this in the car as we're driving around. She says, my part of my job is to check people out when we hire them. And she said, "I've never had anybody say a bad word about you, Richard. And believe me, I've checked you out," which was pretty nice, I thought.
Absolutely.
Because one of my favorite lines is, if you ask about me, you're going to get varying opinions, which is fair enough.
So you're in LA.
So anyway,
You
I
have
go to
no
LA.
idea what you're going to work with yet, I'm guessing.
No, none.
How
And
far are you from day one of shoot? Were we months out at this point?
Oh yeah, but the very beginning, yeah,
Okay.
very beginning. We knew a couple of things we could start laying out and designing, but no, not the gate, not the Stargate, not the whole deal. A couple of locations we could work on, stuff like that. But anyway, I go north, and she drives me to this warehouse. There was a big warehouse in LA where you had the big creatures from the movie Stargate. You had this, you had that, and they stored all this stuff. And then we went up to this, like a ranch, hours north of LA, and we found bits of the Stargate. It was in pieces, right? It was scrapped at that point. And I'm looking at these, if you look at the detailing on it, you say, well, I could, and I'm in my wee little mind, I'm going, well, I could pull a mold off of that, or I can do this, or I can do that, or at least I got something I can draw from or pull an image from it. And well, I sent back up 2 tractor trailers full of things like that. Nothing that was complete. It was all bits and pieces, and this thing's like, it's sort of like being an archaeologist, I guess. You find one bone, and then you try and reconstruct more from that. So I fly back up, and I'm saying 2 tractor trailers will arrive here in about a week or week and a half. And those tractor trailers showed up. We spread everything out. We set up our prosthetic. We made the original helmets, the ones that open and closed. Those were mechanical. We made those in a little lean-to shop outside of the Bridge Studios that we put up. I mean, it was polyethylene and 2x2s, and a lot of toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
And what are you talking about? We got air conditioning. You're outside, for Christ's sakes.
I want to focus on the Stargate for a few minutes, if you don't mind, because it is to this day, was such a marvel of a prop. So you bring 2 tractor trailers up.
Yeah.
You don't even have a complete Stargate. You have pieces that you can take molds from.
Yeah.
I think when the wider shot of the film, when it is spinning, they've got someone doing something with it. They faked a lot of those spinning shots and with the chevrons and everything else. What you ended up with, you did not fake that.
No.
Tell me about the process that you went through
I
to
mentioned
make
Tom
such an amazing prop.
I mentioned Tom Weld's name as the construction coordinator, and he had a great guy working with him called Jan Kabilka. And these two guys were like yin and yang. They were great, right? One complimented the other so much, and Jan was totally into engineering and stuff. So they said, and I said, this thing has to work every goddamn time during the show for one show. Not only that, we are up to 44 episodes. Okay, so this thing's don't mess this up here. Don't fuck around. Tom found a place, I think it was in Seattle or someplace just across the border, and he had a 20-foot gear made. One gear. Okay. And the shipping in this thing was unbelievably difficult. And it was just the biggest pain in the ass to try and get this thing to Canada. Now, I told you the stage was still being built, right? So the elephant doors are only a certain size. So there I am measuring off a drawing the angle on
the
diagonal on the elephant door to make sure, and I have to be careful of the thickness of the gear so it goes into the set. Because I don't think they'd like it if I'm saying you have to take out part of this wall, which is a concrete wall. And that was the beginning of it. That gear, it was so precise, and it was machined, and it was like a gear in your transmission. It never failed.
So that gear was created for the show.
Yes. Yeah. It cost a lot of money, and people looked at me sideways, and I said, "You watch. You know, it'll pay."
Because it has to land on every glyph that it's supposed to. And apparently it didn't have like a fixed like resting place. It had to remain free to float. What was that like? And then you built the what were the exterior pieces that were bolted into it?
It was shrouded in fiberglass pieces. Okay. And then the ring was within that. And then each of the lights that lit up were like I talked to the painter about this, and I said, look, it's got to be opaque when I'm looking at it and it's not lit, but it's got to be transparent when it is lit. And there is such a thing. But they have to look up, and back in those days, they have to look far and wide for it, right? So when you look at the whole thing, unless it's backlit, that does not light up. So the painters had their problems cut out to them as well. Mm-hmm. It was a really, really tricky piece to build in every one of those departments. And again, I give total credit to all the guys and Tom and Jan, and I think it was Ken Wells who was painting at the time. Man, oh man, they did a great job, and Sal Bakila did all of the helmet work and all of that. Wow. He was a sculptor and an incredible mechanical kind of guy, right? But those things were things of beauty. I mean, they were the whole thing in the movie. They were CG.
Mm-hmm. But, no, those helmets were heavy. I wore them before I sold them for prop works, and I'm going to get to them.
I put one of those on one day, and I'm claustrophobic. Okay, I'm claustrophobic enough. I don't like hugs. Maybe they'll shake your hand, but that's no touchy feely shit. I put one on, and I couldn't get it off. And I'm running around. I'm in the art department, and I'm going, Richard, get this goddamn thing off me right now.
Oh, man.
They're all trying to yank it off my head.
Jeez.
Hold my ears, up to here.
Boy, did you learn your lesson.
I never did that again.
In the film, there are several, and I've been dying to ask you this for years. There are several elements in the film that are not consistent from the series.
Yeah.
Like you've already said, the chevrons were lit red. In the film, it was solid Naquadah in universe.
Yeah.
the glyphs were depressed in the movie version. In this version, they were raised on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were these changes deliberate changes? Were they of like, okay, let's do it this way because this looks better, or were they changes of design? I imagine the red glow was a change of that would look better for the screen.
It looked better for the screen. That was one thing.
Okay.
The glyphs themselves came down to, well, what would look better for one thing, and
Yeah.
I would prefer that a shadow was cast on the glyphs, which means you raise them, as opposed to indent them. And so it worked on that level for me visually. And then also it worked in the manufacturing of them because it was easier to do it as an applique rather than the other way around. So it was win-win, and I went, yeah, we'll do that. I'll explain it later. Don't worry about it.
Did you ever have problems with that gate? Was there ever like
No.
did you ever have to shut down for maintenance issues?
No.
Wow.
Never.
What
Never.
a
And
marvel.
even after I left, it worked perfectly. It was it just worked.
Could you attribute a dollar figure to it if I asked you to? Like an estimated range in terms of R&D
Oh God.
and parts and shipping and everything that put that
Oh,
thing together?
you know,
Is it $1 million item?
I probably these days,
Yeah.
but I can't I I can't remember what it actually, when you start totaling all those costs in, it's I can't throw a number at that. But
Wow.
if I were to do it today, I would guarantee you that if I said I wanted to build that now, the gear alone would be $250,000.
Wow.
Uh, and that's just the cost. That's the price of poker today,
Yeah. It's
And
a marvel that you made that, and I can't remember who said it, but it never missed a glyph,
never.
And you guys had to locked it a lot, and when it went
Yeah.
around, it was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So,
I know. It was. You spend the money where you got to make those decisions early on, and usually you're by yourself when you have to make that call.
yep.
And you say, well, I'm going to roll the dice, or you want to do it this way? I don't want to make a mistake now. We've come too close, and I'm not going to blow it now.
And
So,
now, everyone who's listening in, picture all that we've said, and now we're a few episodes into the show, and you get to take it all apart and do it again. Do you remember this?
what, the fire?
No, not the fire. You had to move it over to stage 5 when stage
Yes.
5 was finished building.
Oh yeah.
So everything had to be bolted together, then unbolted, and then taken away.
Yeah. Well, we have to not only move that, we have to move a number of sets, because we had shot a couple of episodes in the effects stage, and the effects stage is a very long stage. It's got to be 350, 400 feet long. It's got a high ceiling because they used to build bridges in it. Obviously, they built the San Francisco Bridge in it, the Golden Gate Bridge.
Mm-hmm. That's a good trivia question. That's why it's called the Bridge Studios. That's where Golden Gate was built in the effects stage.
Yeah, exactly. And so we had to move all kinds of other sets as well. But the big thing with me was this goddamn thing better fit through that door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it did.
Wow.
Boy, I'll tell you, the champagne was flowing that
night. Guys, wait until I'm there before you move this one. I just want to watch it personally when you take it out the door.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was like that. Here, I'll help you.
Yeah. The helm, the fire that you mentioned, they had just shot an Antarctica set.
Yes, the ice
in stage 6, which rubs up against stage 5, which is the SGC. Stage 6 eventually became the Atlantis base.
Yeah.
And there was a stumble light. After Antarctica had been cleared for Solitudes, there was a stumble light that had caught fire. Yeah. Were you there on the set that day, or did you hear about this later?
I'll tell you, I walked into that stage just before that fire because the set was done and it was all foam and whatever. And to strike that kind of set, you don't have guys go in and take it apart stick by stick. You have a crane come in with a pick on it, and it's out of there in half a day. There's no reclaiming it because it's already carved and shaped into forms that nobody can use. So it's the only way to really get rid of it and not cost as much as the set cost to build. So the stage was empty, and I walked, I like walking into an empty stage, and I quite often when I walk into an empty stage, I keep saying, well, we're just going to need more room, aren't we? It really annoys producers. That stage was empty, and right next to it is the main set, right, with the office and the Stargate and everything else. That particular weekend, I had made a date with a female friend of mine who was shooting a movie in South Carolina, and she said she was staying at a place called Folly Beach in South Carolina. There's no such place as Folly Beach, man. She says, "Oh yeah, there is in Charlotte, South Carolina. No, Charleston.
Okay.
Beautiful city, man. Beautiful city." So I said, I'm going to come and visit that particular weekend. So I go into the stage, and everything's cleared, and the light is on because you walk through the trap, and everything's cool. I didn't notice that the light had fallen and was against the drywall. And I get on my plane and I go to South Carolina to Folly Beach and having a great old weekend. And I have my cell phone with me, and my phone rings, and it's Andy Makita, who was the production manager.
Yeah.
And he said, "Richard, where are you? There's been the bridge is on fire." And I'm going, well, that's really bad, I guess, but I can't do a thing about it, man. I'm sitting here looking at the lobster boats out on the Atlantic Ocean, man. And we were very lucky that they were able to contain that fire enough that it didn't actually burn into the Stargate set, but they had cleaners into that Stargate set for months afterwards, cleaning with the toothbrush, because if you've ever been in a major fire, there is a smoke and there's a smell that's left afterwards that is like, it's an acrid smoke, and it annoys your nostrils and your throat, and you can feel this, right? But they were in there with toothbrushes, cleaning and scrubbing every little crevice of that set, trying to get rid of this smell. And they have other things, ozonators or whatever that they always had in the set to try and clear it up. But they're just very lucky that that set had been struck, the foam set, because if that foam set went up, the roof would have gone up, because the roof was asphalt and tin, right, basically. And I guarantee you all of that structure, the crisscross structure up above, would have melted. Oh. And that would have taken care of that entire stage.
How would Stargate have recovered if SGC was burned to the ground?
You could still shoot in the Stargate set.
Yeah.
But if they were going to rebuild that stage, you'd have a big problem, because now you got a scheduling problem, because they're going to build that stage because that's their bread and butter. They need skates, they want to rent the stage, and they've got the space.
Wow.
So to rebuild that stage would have taken months and months. The stage actually goes up pretty quick. They drop these big precast concrete panels and they just lift them up. So a stage can go up fairly quickly, but it's still 2-3 months. And yeah, it would have put a huge kink in Stargate as a totality.
The helmets for the movie were obviously CG, and you guys went and did mechanical ones for SG-1. Had this been like an unlimited budget, every Gould and his Jaffa would have had their own helmet designs, but we had the ones made for Apophis, and you had them for Teal'c and Apophis, the mechanical one, so that if you shot them head on,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see the business in the back, and they could
No.
do this.
Yeah.
And any one time that they went to the side, it was a different helmet.
Yeah.
What was it like? I assume it's a similar process to the Stargate. Just you've got pistons and these, you know.
Yeah. Well, simple basic hydraulics. It's and again, Sal Bakila, who was our model maker, special sculptor kind of guy, he figured out all that stuff out. Because I mean, I don't know how to do that. It's like I'll tell you what I wanted to do. You're the expert in that area, and I'm a great fan of letting people do what they're best at.
Mm.
Okay, I know what my limitations are. I'm not any good at doing hydraulics. I know what it's supposed to look like, and I know this, and I know that, and I know all of that stuff. But I know that you know how to do that shit. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to make your day today because here's one for you. And people are happy to do that because it's what they love. Sal was he was happier than the clam. And I didn't have a problem anymore. So it was, again, it's like win-win, right? It's like, I'm not the best illustrator in the world. Ken Rabehl is.
Yeah.
Ken, draw this. Here's the sketch. Here's what I want it to look like. I want these colors. Or if you got a better idea, please put it down. If it's a better idea, I will not only take it and use it, I'll give you credit for it. Which is what I hope I have always done and I always continue to do.
And there's James Robbins said no drawing is wasted. Ken did a drawing for an alien from an episode called The Gamekeeper that Dwight Schultz went and played that did not have the alien makeup that was used. It had pneumatic tubes, just plastic tubes that would make the different parts of the face open and close. And it was used later on in the season for another species. But it's like, oh, we can use that, just not for this episode. We'll use it later.
Yeah.
Just wild.
And you would be amazed how many things are changed over and reused in different ways. Yeah. I remember I'm in my office in Stargate one day. It was late. It was a Friday or whatever, 4:00, and it was a late shoot. For whatever reason, we had wound up into a late start on a Friday, which you try not to do because you try and give the crew a weekend off, right?
No Fraturdays if possible.
Yeah. So we wound up shooting late that day, and one of the ADs comes running into my office and said, "We need an alien object, man, and we need it like right now." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about? There's nothing in the script." No, we just come up with this. And I had a round stainless steel ball about the size of a baseball. And I picked this ball up, and I had some, I don't know if you know what letter set is, but back in the day, it was like a little thin black tape. And we would use it in the art department for drawing, a line, boom, done. And you can apply it to wood or to plastics and create a design with them. So I took this thin strip of letter tape and I wrapped it in a various random series of circles around this stainless steel ball, and I said, "There you go. It's Naquita." Oh, and it made it to camera that day.
I think that's the Gould grenades. They roll on the floor and let it go. Yeah, those were used throughout the rest of the show. Sometimes you just have to think on your feet, man. And
when you needed something, you didn't need it. There's no time to chit chat about it. And who are you going to ask? You're going to ask me because that's part of my job. So, okay.
I remember there was a junket special feature, I think on season 1 of the DVD for SG-1, and you're like, other shows do offices and courtrooms, we do worlds. Yeah, and you did week after week. What was the process like? Can you take me through the process for a typical show with a typical off-world planet? How many weeks did you have in advance?
Well,
The budget, I'm assuming John Linick, you would all sit down. Maybe John wasn't at that point,
yeah, John
what?
came in later.
Okay.
What would happen at the beginning of every season is, I'll go back a little bit and give you a little history here. Before we know our start date for the crews to come in and do the prep and art department start dates and all that in the beginning of and the shoot date, day one. I would come in a week or two before the art department, and I'd meet with Brad and Jonathan and Robert and whatever other writers were there at the time. There were maybe 5 or 6 of us, and we'd sit in Brad's office and have coffee, and I would ask questions like, okay, give me the arc for the first half a year, 6 episodes, or as much as you can. Mm. And these guys were smart enough that they'd have an arc almost, half of the year. Mm-hmm. And I'd make notes and say, okay, so in this episode, and I don't need the specifics, I just need the broad strokes, okay? So you're going to be going to this planet and this world, and now you're going to flip and do a dual thing over here, and we're going to flip back to this. So now I can see where I can take from episode 2 and apply to episode 5. These are big kind of thoughts, right? Where you're leapfrogging from one to the next, and you're planning 6 months to a year in advance of shooting. And sometimes they could give me enough clues of what their intention was. Just give me your intention and we will see what we can do. And quite often we would come up with ideas and sketches, and they would, Brad or whoever would drift through the art department and say, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to write that.
You're giving them ideas.
Yeah. Well, wow. No, they gave me their idea first.
Yes, but everyone's feeding off of each other's energy.
It's a synergy. We took that and we did that, and he looked at that and went, wow, okay. And so I already had the jump start. So when the art department started, my crew of 6 people, however many it was, I would be able to have a meeting with them and say, okay, Bridget, you're the art director, but here's how this is going to go. I think he should be doing this and she should be doing that. And we'd assign each of these things to one of the art department people. So everybody got a shot at designing something, right? It wasn't like your job is doing the copy and your job. Everybody had a shot to do something creative. And now we had an overview of where we were going to be in a month or 6 weeks, and how we could take what was on Ken's desk right now and apply it to what's on Doug's desk in 3 more episodes. And when you're designing this, you've got that in mind. So you're designing with the capability of changing it into something else. So that was a huge plus. To be able to have that 1 or 2 weeks with the writers, and I go into my office, and again, parking is really easy because there's nobody around, right?
Not yet.
You just drive in and done. And then on an episodic basis, they were pretty good. We would, if they couldn't get us a script, they could tell us pretty much where they were going to go and what they were doing, because you don't design and build this stuff in 7 days, or 8, including the second unit day. It's impossible. And again, as Bridget said in your interview with her, by the time a visiting director would show up, they'd sit down, they'd read their script, and they'd say, okay, here's what I want to do. And I'd say, well, here's what we've got. And we'd have a package, and it would be notes and props and set deck and illustrations and floor plans and what we were building. And sometimes that package would be as thick as the script. And I'd say, and everybody in that room would get one, right? Yeah. And this is something I've done on every show that I've ever really worked on. Everybody gets what's called the package. And quite often they'd say, "Oh, I see the ship has already sailed," and I said, "The ship sailed 4 weeks ago."
Right. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Would you like tea or coffee?
Oh man.
Enjoy your stay, sir.
Wow.
So yeah, and again, the writers were very good in forewarning us or telling us where they wanted to go with these things, especially Brad and Jonathan.
Hmm.
And Jonathan left, I think, after the second or third
Between
season.
yeah, at the end of season 3. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to LA.
And then Brad took it over. And Brad, they're both great guys, but Brad just picked up the ball, and he's such a nice man. It was like there.
Yeah.
I think I was telling you in our first conversation that in each of these great shows that I worked on, be it Stargate, Doctor Who, Battlestar, Caprica, whatever, there's always been a great writer at the top of it.
Yeah.
Brad Wright on Stargate, Ron Moore on Battlestar. Um, you know,
They're
we had
amazing at what they do, and you can trust
we
them
had
for
we
anything.
had Phil and God, what was his name on Doctor Who? It was amazing, and these guys. I mean, if any one of those guys called me right now and said, "I've got a movie and wherever," I'd just go. I'd say, "Yeah, sure, tell me about it." But that's fine. I'll go where David Nutter is the director.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with you anywhere. Because
Absolutely.
these are very cool. This talent is unbelievable. They're nice people. There's not a screamer in there, you know.
When you're
And
surrounded by people who love what they do, if you're lucky enough to get to work, there's some people that you like. You know what? I under certain circumstances, it's great to be paid, but if it's doing something that I could be willing to do for free with these people,
yeah,
you're a lucky person.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mary, my Mary
Yeah.
is I hate to put a label on her. I don't want to say my partner or my wife, but
Mm.
it sounds like I own her and I don't.
Yeah.
She's her own individual
Right.
free spirit, you know what I mean? So my Mary, not in a possessive way, uh, she's a costume designer and she's done a lot of big movies. And we were talking about the state of the business today. And with the writer's strike and the actor strike and it's very difficult. I've never seen it this bad, and I've been doing this for over 40 years now, in one way or another, be it CBC television or features or television series or whatever. And I just don't know what's going to happen. It was a different time, man, and I know this is all going to get solved. And the thing is, Mary and I were talking and saying, when we came, I've worked with some of the greatest people on the planet.
Mm.
I worked with Sir Ken Adam. This is the guy that invented James Bond, Dr. No, and Goldfinger, and all that stuff. I worked with Harry Lang, 2001, right? I've worked with Philip Harrison, Aliens, and all that stuff. I've worked with great directors, the Frankenheimers, John Badhams, Peter Hyams, Peter, unbelievable people. And every one of these people was very generous. Richard Lester, who, amazing director. He did Superman 3 when I worked with him. And he did the Beatles movie, Help.
Yes.
I mean, these are world-class people, and there's little old me, and I remember Richard Lester, we were out in High River doing something on Superman, and we surveyed there 3 times, and the camera's going to be this, that, and that, done. Well, we get there, and I go to open the set. Where's the goddamn camera? It's over there. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I want to shoot over there." "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, you never told me." He says, "Well, Richard," and he was very cool about it. He could have ripped me a new asshole, right? But he didn't. He put his arm around me. He said to the AD, "Give me a second. I'd like to have a word with Richard." Not in a bad way, not like he was going to give me shit or something, but he put his arm around me. We took a little walk, and it was at the end of the street. There was this bank, a royal bank, which you only have in Canada. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have those down here.
and you don't have them anywhere except here. and he said, "Look, never trust a director when they say they're only going to see this. And here's how I'm going to fix that for you. It's something you can put in your back pocket." He said to the AD, "Get me an extra, get me a ladder, and get me a squeegee." And he put that extra in front of the sign or the building to obscure it enough with the squeegee as if he were cleaning the window or the sign. And he said, "And that's how you do it. But don't ever trust the director when he tells you he's not going to see something."
But you made it work.
And we made it work.
Yeah.
And he shot with 3 cameras. He shot with a close-up, a medium, and then he had a huge telephoto in the far background. He would finish shooting at 2:00 in the afternoon. And they would come to the art department and say, "Where can we shoot tomorrow?" And I said, "We're not ready. We can't generate this stuff fast enough because you're shooting so fast." He would just chew it up, you know? Unbelievable. And the first time I saw that long lens, I went, "Holy shit, this got to be 1,000-millimeter lens." And he's way out there, right? And he's just picking off this and that and that and that.
This was for Superman.
That's Superman, yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. That was the first really big movie that I worked on. I mean, this is back when you flew Superman on wires, right?
Right.
We were in Calgary, and we had to fly him down a street in downtown Calgary. We changed the direction of traffic in the street. We dug trenches in the street, in a downtown main street of Calgary, which is a big city. We had a guy with this big drum and cable, like 80 feet in the air, wind up Superman, and then track him, fly him, move him on a trolley up there. Yeah.
Wow.
And the city let us do whatever we wanted. We did whatever we treated them very well, by the way.
Right.
They did all right by us. And we did all right by them. But it was my first experience with how shall I phrase this? A big movie. Yeah. And that attitude stuck with me for a long time. I mean, I guess a whole lot of combinations of everything, all of these people that I've just mentioned, and their approach to something. I would tell people in my art department, you do not design with a calculator next to your drawing board. You design with this and with this. And you got a script, and you know what you're trying to accomplish here. It's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's a visual, it's a whole lot of things that are intangible. What it costs, we'll figure out later.
Right.
You get it right, and we'll figure it out, believe me.
If you're starting with a calculator, you're limiting yourself.
You're totally limiting yourself. Wow. And I would say, and they say, "Well, we're over budget." And I say, "We're not over budget. Just let's get it right. And either I will change it so that it is right, or I will find the money to make it right. And you got to trust me because I'm trusting you, and we're all here to do this thing, right?" And once they got that,
yeah,
part of my reputation was that I like to design big, which, vis-a-vis the line. You show me an 18,000 square foot stage, and I'm going to say, we're going to need more room.
More room.
Because I literally build like wall to wall. Yeah. I leave a safety lane, but I build wall to wall. And because I don't want to lose that 10 feet of stage space. You got to leave 4 or 5 feet on either side for laneway. I'll leave you the laneway, but I'm using the concrete walls to hang scenery on. Wow. Right up flush. And sometimes I've had arguments with the safety guys, and I said, "What I've got is safer than what you're telling me I have to do. Because here's the why, here's the wherefore, and that's all fireproof, and this is fireproof." So it all worked out. But people would look and say, "Well, you're breaking all the rules." I said, "Well, I'm not breaking them really. I'm just I'm taking a different approach to them."
Yeah, the visual trickery that you guys would execute. I mean, it's just like magicians. I remember going to set for the first time in season 9, and in my brain, the SGC is concrete, and I put my hand against the wall,
Yeah.
and it's a facade. And further up, Bridget even said that it wasn't even that material. It was something even thinner up above because no one was ever going to touch it.
Yeah.
And it made economic sense to do that.
Yeah. And that was Tom Wells talking to me while we were building it. And I think it was above the 12-foot level. He said, "Richard, I know all of this is hard and it's concrete and whatever, but why are we building hard flats up there?" And I said, "Well, if you can make that cotton look like this, be my guest." And they did.
That's just extraordinary.
Saved a shitload of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I put somewhere else, right?
Absolutely, you could.
Because there's always a place to put. You always want to put the money in front of the camera, and where you're going to see it. I don't. I could care less if there's a finial on that stick that's 80 feet in the background. You're not going to notice it. You're going to look for the actors, the action, the dialogue, whatever. You're not looking for. If you're looking for that kind of detail, I've lost you already. Forget about it. It's like, who cares at that point? You may as well leave the theater.
Right.
Because one of us has got to leave the theater. Anyway.
We talked about recreating the gate. You also had to recreate the mountain complex. How much wiggle room did you feel you could have in terms of changing a couple of the details while making sure that other details were in place? You got the main window into the from the gate room into the control room. Upstairs, you got the secondary window for the briefing room. Certain things had to be in place. You needed certain hallways. You needed it to look a certain way. But how much freedom did you have for filling out the details and filling out the world? And also because it had been a year since, too, in the story.
They literally said, "Do what you want to do." And I remember that set was designed, so you got the Stargate, and then then the control room was up top, and then the spiral staircase to get you up and down really easily, which they hardly ever used, but they should have used more, I thought. But
yeah, it was cool.
The office was next to that conference room, and down below there's the Stargate. That whole wall was wide. It moved. It was on a track, so I could build another room just off. If I'm looking at the Stargate to my left, I use that for other rooms all the time, and all the tunnels and everything else. I could, if I build what I would call an eye kind of tunnel. There's a tunnel up here, that big, tunnel down there, that big, and I build one in the middle, and I leave it open at both ends. It's infinity.
Wow.
I could have people going and coming, and then I turn the camera around and I look the other way, and now they're in a different tunnel, or I change the graphics, or you can do amazing things with a couple of simple little things, be it a graphic or be it turning the camera around. And people seem to have this. They seem to think the camera is God, and it's not. It's a recording device. And it's the same thing with light. Everybody goes, "Oh, the light," and well, you think that's not designed? Every one of those illustrations you look at is lit. I remember one of our DPs on Stargate would come to us, and he would thank us. He'd say, "Well, man, thanks for lighting the set, because I just look at your illustration. I just go and hang a couple of lights, and it's done."
The light's
Yeah,
built into the image.
yeah. I
Yeah.
would tease VPs that I didn't get along with. I'd say, wait a minute, you keep telling me, like you invented light. Look at the classic painters.
Yeah.
Look at those guys. And you know what? They didn't need 1,000 feet of trucks to pull a light out of every 5 minutes to,
Yeah.
to light something. And there was one guy, our producer hated this guy. And this producer would say to me, I remember being on a location at one point, a different show.
Mm.
And he said, look at this. And we're standing by one of the lighting trucks. It's empty. And he says, look at this. The thing is already lit. He's already emptied the entire goddamn truck. This DP lights with available light. You know that? Every available light in the truck. It's like, and there's no, and I've worked with great DPs as well. I mean, I can tell you, there are guys that are DPs that first class. I have the highest regard for them, and some not so much.
So the first class ones don't need the kitchen sink, don't need everything in the truck to make it work. Wow.
No,
Wow.
no. They walk onto a set and they know exactly what is designed, what's done, and why it's done.
Mm.
They may ask for a practical over here or something like that. It doesn't look like a night baseball game when they light it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's subtle, it's beautifully lit. It enhances the space for the actors because you walk in and there's a mood that they create with this light.
Mm.
And it's what we're trying to do with anything that's physical or a set or a visual effect that we used to design a lot of the visual effects. I mean, I remember at Stargate when I remember going to Richard Hudolin one day and I had an illustration in my hand because he had to be on a catwalk kind of thing and look down, and it was a green screen. And I knew he was going to say, well, what the hell am I looking at?
Yeah.
And I made sure I was there when he was on that set. And I went up and I'm with him, I talk to him all the time. And I walked up to him and he's looking over this railing and I'm saying, here's what you're supposed to be looking at. And it was an illustration of what he was supposed to be looking at because we were going to put that in later, right?
Of
I said,
course.
oh man, now I got it. And you could see now he knew how to act with where he was.
He didn't know what he was working with before. It's
He didn't know
just
what he was
a
looking
blank
at.
space.
It's a green screen.
Yeah.
It's nothing, And he went, oh yeah, that's really cool. And then he got it. And he could move his head or his eyes, or
Yeah.
he could kind of point at something and know that it was there or going to be there.
Yep.
And we used to do a lot of that. It wasn't like you just put up a green screen and send somebody away, say, give me something.
Yep.
If it was basic graphics on a computer or something, unless there was something specific you wanted, there were a lot of talented computer guys as well, who could generate beautiful imagery. And you say, keep it in this color range. I don't want to see this bright yellow in this room because I've used these colors in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it with the greens and the reds and the blues. And they would understand. And so you're not restricting them. You're just kind of guiding them a little bit. Because I don't want to restrict them. I need their help, and I don't want to piss them off. But I also want to have what I want. You have to be a little bit selfish to be doing what I'm doing.
I would imagine if people were seeing that you were going out of your way to make sure that someone had everything that they needed, that there would be, in turn, a place where it was like, okay, he really wants this. I really want to do everything I can to make it work for him, as much as is reasonably possible.
Well, I think I got a lot of help from a lot of those people that I've worked with, and that photo that you sent me, those are all great people, and those people I respect a lot, and to this day I respect a lot. and hopefully they respect me.
Mm.
And when you have that kind of thing, uh, where they know I'm not asking this just for my health, I'm
Right.
asking this for a reason, and it's beyond me. It's not just about Richard. There's no me here. It's about what we're doing here. Why are we here? And I hold people in high regard, and I respect them. And if they don't have the talent and I don't respect them, then I'm sorry, I don't have a job for you.
Yeah. You don't have time to
That's it.
handhold.
That's it. I'm sorry. I'm quite happy to train somebody, but understand if I'm training you, you get to listen.
Right? Exactly.
I've interviewed so many people that want to come in with no experience or very little experience. And they want my job or the art director's job, or they think you just point, right? Well, no, you don't just point. You should be able to draw something. Really? Yeah, with a pencil or a
Yeah.
pen or a napkin, anything.
Yeah.
Or I don't care if you do it on a computer. But guys like, again, Ken Rabehl, he could pick a medium. He could work on a computer. He could work in
Wow.
watercolors. He could work in inks. He could work anything you wanted. Gouache, pick something.
Wow.
You give him a stone and a chisel, and he'll make something out of he's like that. And other people would go, oh no, oh no, and I like to surround myself with good, honest, talented people, and they are out there, and they deserve the credit that they deserve, and the others should find a different line of work.
Mm. I had in my conversation with Bridget, I thought I was going to walk away with an impression that your biggest enemy was the budget, but it seemed to be more time.
No, yeah, time is always time is a problem. Well, especially in episodic, you got 7 days to shoot it, but if you got the right prep
Mm-hmm.
and you've got people that are listening to what you're saying and how to shoot it. So if time was a real pressure, I'd say, well, can we do a French reverse on this one? Which means you're building you're looking this way. You're still looking this way. You change a couple of little things or lighting or whatever. And
You can't tell.
You can't tell, right? It's yet another of those little tricks you use. Or I'll build you a 3-wall set, and for the 4th wall, you go this way. And I have built sets that are incomplete, and I remember, oh God, I remember one DT. I built this pretty big set, but it was a street scene, and it was, let's say, 270, 60 degrees finished. And there was nothing in them from that point to that point. And he called the producer instead of coming to me. And the producer comes up, and the DP says he can't shoot this. I said, well, why not? He says, well, look, if there's nothing there. I said, why is there nothing there? I said, well, first of all, that's where the money ran out. And that got his attention, you see, because now it's money and he's a producer. And I said, well, if you do this and you do that and you avoid that, you shot it. Why do you need this? You don't. All he has to do is get off his ass and think a little bit, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, the audience's mind fills in the details.
And you don't have to light it. Look at the money you're saving. There's a lot of ways to go at things, and it just depends how you want to approach things. And I have no fear of a producer coming to me and saying, we're going to go through this budget. And usually we're going to go through this, but like you've done something wrong because, this number is wrong. And I remember at least 2, 3, 4 times, I would sit, and when I break a script down, I'll go line by line and I'll put a dollar figure to it. Okay? You want this shot? That's got to see that. What are you going to see? You're going to see that? You got to build that. You got to build that.
That's
line.
impressive, Richard. That's impressive.
Okay. And I would go through this this budget, and I'd say, here's a red pen for you. Anything that you see in this breakdown you don't like, you strike a line through it, and I won't build it. And see that number at the end? That goes away when you put the red line through it. They never used the red pen. They found the money somewhere else because they knew I wasn't bullshitting them.
You were going to build it.
I was going to build it. I remember I told you that thing about how to build a hallway, right? With the 2 bits here and the 1 bit in the middle. And I worked with a producer who I liked. And again, the budget was a little high. And he came to me and said, well, what are you building here, for God's sakes? And, the usual bluster. And I said, well, tell me what you're used to. And he said, well, we built this thing on the show. And it was like, I said, how many feet do you think it was? He says, well, it was this many feet. And I took my scale out for my drawing. And I said, okay, so this hallway is this many feet. That's pretty much the same as what you said there. And this one is that many feet. And so they're pretty much the same.
Right.
Mine just looks different.
Right.
But it's the same footage.
Right, exactly. You're still going to get a camera in there and do it.
It's the same footage. And wow. Well, if you put it that way. Yeah, well, yeah, well.
What?
So, and then you have to understand, I find these like humorous and enjoyable experiences. I don't find them like conflicts. It's like
you're figuring it out.
If you're not having fun with this stuff, what's the point?
No, it's not worth it. The amount of stress management is just a part of this. It's, you might as well sit your butt on the beach, where just far enough into the water where the ocean is just lapping you in the face. Yeah. And, you just have to, your brain recognizes, okay, in another few seconds, I'm about to get lapped in the face again. I got to be ready for it. That's episodic television.
I have a couple of lines that I use as a result of these pressures. And one of them is, I don't get ulcers, I give them. And the other one is, you'll have to whine faster. I'm a really busy guy.
I love that. That's great. Jeez, that's true.
And when you say something like that to somebody, they understand. They're just whining.
Yeah. If they've got a good sense of humor, they'll put a smile on their face.
Well, if they don't get it immediately, they get it in a few minutes.
Jeez, your ability to stretch sets was pretty spectacular. I remember the Tok'ra set in season 2 with the crystals and just making these hallways and hallways of crystals. And then come season 4, you guys added bales of spray painted hay, into the walls.
Yeah.
And you added to the set over time. You continued to evolve the asset that you had based on the budget that you had, and made these awesome looking pieces of architecture. They're just eye candy to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I've built entire sets out of egg crates. You know how you get your eggs in a little thing, and they got a little.
Yep.
And I told Tom, I think it was, the construction guy, the construction coordinator, we're going to build a whole set out of this stuff. He said, what? I said, yeah, it's cardboard. And then we're going to spray it like it's concrete. Mm-hmm. You're crazy. I said, no, just do it. I'll do a test.
Yeah, the pattern is cool.
We used to do a lot of tests. That's something I should mention. If I had an idea, I'd say, give me a couple of 4x8 sheets of test, or for paint, give me a 2-foot square of this with the finish on it that we're going to use. And then I'd be able to hold it in sunlight. I'd be able to hold it in artificial light or whatever, to see what the camera would see or see what the eye sees, which are different things. Well, it's controllable what the eye sees. But yeah, a lot of tests. And this egg crate set was fantastic. I loved it. The texture was unbelievable.
Wow. And this
And
was
it's there.
Stargate.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm trying to
yeah.
remember. I'm gonna have to go and have a look.
It
Someone in
was
the
a
chat will
huge
figure it out.
set. It was in stage 6.
Okay.
Oh God, I can't remember. And it had levels. It had a big walking level above it.
Okay.
Oh God, I can't. It was before the. I think it was before the ice set.
Oh, so season 1. Okay.
And yeah, it filled that stage. It filled stage 6, and it
Wow.
was made out of egg crates.
Wow, that's amazing. The
Yeah,
one of my favorite pieces that's routinely used, and it was used in a lot of the Gould sets in the show. It's some kind of water filtration device, and instead of running water through it, you rig lights inside of it and you hang it on the walls, like midway through the set. The cargo ship set had a ton of them, and they just looked cool because they had little grooves all the way down each side of them, and the light from rigging lights on the inside of it would shine out in these really cool patterns. And it's not exactly an appliance, but it's designed for a completely different purpose. But because the shape is so cool, and because you can light it in a certain way, you can repurpose this unit for other things.
I can't remember. I can't place it.
But just taking one thing and cannibalizing it into something else, like your egg crates.
Yeah, well, we use. I think you take different things and apply them in a different way.
Yeah.
Another thing that I did, it was on at Caprica, placemats. What our buyer, construction buyer, went out and said, I can get 1 million of these things really cheap. And they were placemats, 17 inches by, the normal placemat size.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like individual little cubes, like little chiclets, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Individual, all kind of strung together. And it was flexible. It was great. I said, really? And she said, yeah, I can get all kinds of them. And I looked at them and I said, well, first of all, you got it because they were rounded and they're joined, so you got a gap. Now you got texture, right? You can't buy square footage like that pre-made. So I built a whole set out of this stuff, out of placemats. Wow. They couldn't believe it. They said and Tom came to me and said the biggest problem was how do we staple them to the wall? I said, nobody's going to notice the staple, Tom.
No, the camera's too far away. It's not going to get right in close to it.
Just get it on there. It'll be fine. Because everybody has their job and everybody focuses on their job. To a lighting guide, the most important thing in a movie is the lighting. To the hair and makeup person, the hair and the makeup's the most important. That's what makes the movie. And to the craft service person, the food that you eat is the most important.
Of course.
And everybody has that approach. And when you're in a job like mine, you have to be aware of all of it because it is, you take from all and you contribute to all. And you have to be very wide open in all of those things. So you can't just focus and say, well, I design things and that's all. No, you do more than that because you're thinking of the costume color, you're thinking of the hair color, you're thinking of, makeup. I've had makeup people come to me and say, what do you want me to do with the makeup on this one? It was a little futuristic movie I did way back in the past. And she was great. She came up and said, what do you want me to do with it? This was pretty goth and all of that. And I put the black makeup here and do this. And they said, you sure? Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Step off the edge. You'll be fine.
In this context.
It's that old joke, right? They pushed Geronimo out of the top of a building and somebody asked him how it's going, and he said, as he passed the 13th floor, he said, so far, so good.
That's great. What Do you recall any of the Stargate sets that you were the most proud of over the years?
Oh, the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
That was after that, you know, um, after that push and that major effort to design all of that, and that was, I mean, there were a lot of great sets afterwards, but that's the one that I really remember.
SGC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It was, and how those walls slipped in and moved
uh-huh.
together and moved apart, and nobody knew. It was great. It was, and how things got loaded into the second floor or whatever, nobody knew. And it was, well, we're not carrying that stuff up on a ladder. No, you don't have to. You're going to put it on a pallet on a forklift, you moron, and lift it up. It's
Through the
done.
windows upstairs?
No, there was a little area in the back when you go,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, the windows were all gimbaled because they had to be because of reflections.
Reflections. Yeah, if you look really
Um,
closely, there's a pin in the middle so they can
yeah,
do this.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, sometimes you want to do that, but
Oh, that's true too.
sometimes you want to do both.
It's trickery. It's whatever it takes to pull off
It's
the effect.
it's
And
an illusion. It's you
uh-huh.
look back at the early days of movies, it's all an illusion.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
there were brilliant things done in camera back in those days.
Yep.
And I see the trend turning again because to do things in camera is becoming very popular again
Mm-hmm.
because actors are getting really tired of being put on a wire and hanging in front of a green screen for 6 hours a day and being in makeup for the next four, you know?
Are you blown away by the technology that's coming out with these volumes and these monitors that are as tall as a whole story of a building? You know,
No, no. I
not
did a
amazed
trip.
by it.
I did a trip over 20 years ago, and part of that trip was I went to from Vancouver. I went to Tokyo, and then to Singapore, and then to the Maldive Islands, and then back the same way. And what I saw in Tokyo 20 years ago, and what you're describing was already there 20 years ago,
Wow.
and it was in that kind of thing was starting to happen in London 40 years ago. You know, because after my Superman 3 trip, or after that movie, I went to England, and the guy I was working with in Calgary, Peter Merton, who was the designer, hired me. He was
Mm.
over like 3 or 4 different continents, and they sent Terry Ackland Snow, who was the British art director, over to Canada to supervise all of this going on in Canada, and they had an art director elsewhere and elsewhere. But when we finished the Canadian segment, which took 3 or 4 months of shooting,
Mm.
um, I went to England, and they showed me everything. They showed me Pinewood, where the Bond movies were
Yeah.
done. They showed me where The Great Gatsby was shot. We had lunch in that dining room.
Wow.
They showed me Shepperton. They showed me Elstree. They showed me everything. It was, and to see how they did their movies. There was a plaster shop, there was a wood shop, there was a paint shop, there was a costume shop, there was a fabric shop, and it's different back then over there, and it still is, I think, um, in that somebody gets into the business and they train them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an apprenticeship
Mm-hmm.
where if you'll notice the credits, I saw credit, oh God, on some movie the other day, and a designer that I know in England. I see his son's name is a set designer in some movie. You know the name, right? It's an Ackland Snow name, which is they're very big in England, the Ackland Snows. And Terry was the guy I worked with. And I saw this Ackland Snow in the art department. I said, aha, that's probably Terry's kid. And they bring him along, right? And like Peter Merton's son comes along and he does this and props people and setback people. And they train them very, very, very well
Wow.
in that thing. One of our ADs on Arrow, great AD, really first rate, Ken Shane. He trained as a T-boy in England. His father was a DP or a lighting guy or a gaffer. So when the lighting guys would try and bullshit him, he'd just say no, because he knew his lighting.
I see right through that.
I sees right through it. It's going to take you 2 hours, not 4.
Wow.
That's it. But again, he started out as a T-boy. And
what is a T-boy?
Guy runs around getting the director and whoever coffee and tea. And
okay, so like an aide. Okay.
It's a PA.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
They called them, well, they used to call them T-boys.
Wow.
I guess they call them T-girls as well now. So.
Well,
I hope.
you have to start somewhere, and if you're talented and if you're willing to apply yourself and be receptive to people, you know,
well, the thing is, it's such a it's I know it's going through its problems right now, but it's such a great business. I liken it to being a carnival person. It's like either you're a carny or you're not. You know? And there are times over my career that I've been on the road for years, to the point I didn't own a car, because my phone would ring. People would say, "I'm doing this." I'd say, "When are you doing it?" I can be there a week or 2 weeks. I get on a plane. I'd be gone 6-8 months.
Wow.
My phone would ring again. I'd go from there to there. I was gone. It was great. I lived in hotels. I was single. I didn't have a family. I didn't have any girlfriends or anything. It was like, great. Love it.
What an adventure.
Dial 9, room service. It's perfect. You know? But anyway, it's such a great business. And but you know, you have to work hard at it. And if you shut up and listen, you'll learn a lot. My dad used to say that to me. So.
My dad did something similar as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. No, the work that you did over all of these great shows, so many of them are so important to me. Not just Stargate, but Battlestar. Man, what a show! It was such a good show.
Yeah, so, that's Ron Moore.
Yeah, Ron Moore, absolutely. David Icke. The you guys started in SG-1 in '97. I go up to Vancouver now. I talk to people who are up there. It's exploded, and so much of it was because of the money that was put into those productions.
Yeah,
and all of the Arrow series and everything else that continued to fuel that economy. And I mean, they rival Hollywood now. You know,
we're huge. Yeah. Vancouver is huge. Well, it's like the Pacific Northwest in America. There's a certain glow here, and in the winter it rains, and everything's nice and wet, and it films beautifully. I arrived here for Stakeout many years ago, 36 years ago.
Wow.
And my place was in Alberta, and I just said, I'm never going back. And I stayed. And that was at the beginning of, it was Stakeout, and McCabe and Mrs. Miller had just been shot here. That Altman movie, and Barry Fox was shot here at that time. And it was shot just up the road from where I live, actually, at Cypress Mountain. And it just started growing. And Stephen J. Cannell realized there was a difference in the dollar. And Joe Swirling, I worked with Joe as well here in Vancouver, who was Stephen's like right-hand guy. Joe went to Stephen and said, I can save you 25 cents on every dollar you want to spend. And Stephen said, what? Which is how all those Cannell shows got to Vancouver. which built the North Shore Studios, which was the first major studio built here in Vancouver. And once that happened, it started. It's a boom, 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 and now it's huge. It's like billions of dollars.
It is, and very effects heavy. You know, you can get
There
so
is
much more done.
yeah, a lot of visual effects people here. Yeah,
So
and
talented.
it's built great crews because they've worked with great shows, great people. I mean, pick the X Files, Mission Impossible have shot here, iRobots, big movies. It's and it's a film friendly town. The weather is overall pretty good. It rains a little more in the wintertime because it's Pacific Northwest. We're very green. We don't have that many deciduous trees where it's fall and all the leaves fall off the trees.
Right now. Yeah.
It's
I know
really
Christmas films that are being shot up there right now for Hallmark. You
yeah,
know, you can pull it
yeah,
off. Just let's put
yeah.
some white stuff. Let's put some snow on the ground over there. We're good. You know,
Well,
it's August.
we did that in Little Women. We
Yeah.
all those scenes up by the houses. That was man-made snow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, for the
Richard,
kids, try and get into the business. It's worth it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This has been a treat for me to sit down
Oh,
and get to know you better. Man, what a career. What a body of work and work that will be watched for a very long time. These shows aren't going anywhere. People are discovering them, believe me, all the time. Every time I turn around, there's a new Stargate fan saying, "Hey, I just found this.
oh yeah.
I can't wait to watch the rest." You know, it's good quality work, and you and your teams have done yourselves proud.
Well, that's great. It was fun doing them. It was great. It was we had an opportunity to be creative and to make magic, as they used to say. That sounds like a total cliche, but it's true. Because when it's right and you film it and you see it and you know it's right, you get that little tingle. It's fantastic. It's something special. You've created something. It's like I'm sure it happens in any person's life and any job that they do. Building something or being a mason, building a building or whatever you say that's going to be here 100 years from now, or there's a certain pride in your work and what you've done, and or a chef who prepares an incredible meal. I don't care what it is you do. If you're doing it right and you're enjoying it. We had a guy marries into above ground gardening now. We hit, and because we're built on a side of a mountain, the house is, and to build this thing, you got to dig into the hill so it's level, right? Because it's basically a big trough above ground. And you got to put this trough in, and then you fill it full of different kinds of dirt, and then you grow things. We had this fella come over, and he came over with a shovel, and he was the best digger I've ever seen. And his boss said, "I'm going to send you my best digger." I said, "What are you talking about?" This guy was amazing. He had a flat blade, and he dug this thing, and that trench fit in there. You didn't need a level. It was bang on. And he was the nicest guy. And he was happy. You know?
He was good at his craft.
And he loved it. He
Yeah.
loved doing things like that. And he was happy. And I'm going, good for you. I hope you spread some of that around, or people can see it. They should understand that it does exist, and let's stop with the whining and the whinging and how bad everything is. And
Yeah.
and constant, what's that old song, Baloo the Bear? Accentuate the positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Be thankful for what you have. Work your way from there. Count your blessings.
Yeah.
Find something that you are good at, and
Yes.
we should be
Yeah.
so fortunate.
Yes. Well, you and I are, I think.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Richard.
My pleasure, my man. Call anytime. We'll figure this video thing out later.
My thanks once more to Richard Hudolin for joining me on this episode of Dial the Gate. I've been hoping for a long time to add his voice to the collection, and big thanks to Bridget McGuire for making that possible, extending an email that I sent to her along to him. This was a real treat for me to have him, and hopefully we'll have him back in some capacity. We've got a few more episodes left before we wrap up season 3. Keep it on dialthegate.com for the new episode releases. I'm now keeping the list of some of the episodes that are in the can but have not been published yet. They were pre-recorded. I had this whole list here, and I was like, you know what? I really should publish these. It's not like I'm not going to publish them. So you can see them now available on dialthegate.com. And we're about to wind down our season of Wormhole Extremists the following weekend with Crystal Skull and Nemesis. Wormhole Extremists will be taking a bit of a break. Dial the Gate will play out a little bit further, and we will see how things go. My thanks to my moderating team, Summer, Tracy, Jeremy, Anthony, Reese. You guys make the show possible week after week, and I really appreciate having you. My thanks to Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web for keeping Dial the Gate up and running, and Linda Gategabber Fury, my producer. Thank you to you, Linda, and everyone for tuning in and spreading the word about the show on social media. I appreciate all of you. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate, and I'll see you on the other side.